Welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast. You're in the right place if you're a growth-seeking being who acknowledges the challenges and delights of your humanity on the path to an ever more conscious life. If you want to feel inspired to love and accept yourself, to feel free to be and express you in all your brilliance, if you want to truly value yourself and others and feel energized and alive both at home and in the world, then sit back and take a breath as you explore and grow the brilliance of your beautiful human self with your host, the father of non-personal awareness and creator of the MPA process, Joel Young.
Hello, and welcome to the Be a Brilliant podcast Be a Brilliant Human podcast, even with me, Joel Young, the host that cocks up the beginning. Well, it's a new year. What can I tell you? Well, welcome. If you're here for the first time, I'm so pleased you found us. And if you're back and you are a regular listener, you know I always very much appreciate your presence here. Now, I very much hope that you had a good New Year's Eve and you celebrated the arrival of this new decade in style. And welcome to part 2 of Secrets to Rocking Your 2020 Intentions, so they actually have an impact and get you what you want. So this is a 4-part training, and it's all part of my mission to raise the standards of goal setting as we enter 2020. Now, I don't mind saying that I think this episode will likely blow your mind, because what I'm going to share with you today, it brought me so much peace when it first dawned on me. I mean, it literally stopped like a subtle poison in my spiritual searching. It let me be more me. And of course, it is a key secret to rocking your intentions. And honestly, when I really got this, it totally shifted how I operated in the world. So you'll want to pay particular attention to this episode. Now, in my 25 years of teaching transformational tools all over the world, I have come across and used and shared many different manifesting tools. So things like vision boarding and affirmations and visualizations. And I noticed that the results for many people were, well, let's say, sketchy at best. I know for myself that experience of them being sketchy can be very disheartening, and even in some cases, you end up feeling more disconnected, or I felt more disconnected from my dreams, which was quite the opposite of what I was looking for when I came with enthusiasm and hope to those tools. But then in 2007, my whole outlook shifted when the universe really graced me with a new philosophy and practice, which I called non-personal awareness, MPA for short. And as I began sharing that in rooms around the world and watched it spread quickly to over 18 countries, I found that the fundamentals of MPA were kind of filling the gaps and resolving the paradoxes and answering the questions that had arisen in me in my career and in my experience up to them, including why those manifesting tools and intention setting processes worked just some of the time. But we're often devoid of impact, except as you know, for those briefest of highs. Well, it turns out that it's actually not the tools or techniques that are the issue. So, I mean, you've probably heard success stories from all of the approaches that you've tried, even the ones that you've not necessarily had great successes with yourself. So clearly they can work, and with spectacular results. And the other thing I'm going to say is it's not your fault. It's not your fault either. I see so many people who sort of jump to self-blame in this situation. I hear things like, clearly I haven't done my work or cleared my stuff, yada, yada. It's part of my mission to stop that counterproductive and frankly untrue story too. So, I mean, lots of people, right? They manifest what they want and still have plenty of stuff. Plenty of stuff they could do some work on, right? So what is it? What is it? Well, it's a matter of fundamentals. So the focus on tools or the stuff really misses the bigger picture. The awareness that those tools are a part of a system which is connected both personally and non-personally. In other words, within the self and beyond the self. And yes, you can luck out, you can happen upon an aligned moment. Hey, presto, give the tool the credit, score. But that's not really what happened, is it? The tool of choice in the moment was just part of a bigger alignment. So what I'm offering you over these 4 episodes is those fundamentals, a map, if you like, that means you can be way more aware of the parts that are at play, the bigger picture. And through that mindfulness, have a much better chance of having those aligned moments more often and much more by choice than by blind luck, if you like. So if you've had sketchy results from previous attempts at manifesting, envisioning and setting New Year intentions, and you really want to knock it out of the park this year, or if you're someone who's pretty successful with the approaches you use, but you recognize that this could bring you greater success, then my friend, you're in the right place. Now, if you missed the first part of this series, you should definitely go and check it out because, I covered secret number 1, which is energy first, and how the power source behind the manifestation technique you use is critical to the ultimate impact of your efforts. I also told the story of how, like as an 8-year-old boy, I used the sun and a magnifying glass to create fire, and how I realized that a hazy sun didn't provide the juice to create the desired outcome. And I show how that relates to manifestation techniques, and unwittingly using a dodgy energy source just intensifies the dodgy results. And having a clear and appropriate energy source gives you the juice you need. So whatever you're manifesting and whatever tool you're using, that's going to be the case. So if you haven't listened to that episode yet, go listen to it right now, then come back for this second part. So it should show up as the last episode wherever you're listening to this, whatever podcast platform you're on. But I'll also put a link in the description. And also you can just type in beabrillianthuman.com into your browser. That's where you'll find the show notes and you'll find all the episodes. So you'll find it there. And you'll find that the last one, part 1, is episode 13 of the podcast, this being episode 14. And by the way, thanks so much. For those of you who did tune in, and also the ones that sent me feedback, do you know what? Last week's episode had the most listens in a week that I've ever had since I started this podcast. So thank you so much for that. Now, in this episode, I want to take you deeper into the second part of the system, which is focused. Hence the dandy title, part 2. Or 4, intention and the multifaceted self, open brackets, focusing the many parts of you. So going back to my analogy of the sun's energy focused through a magnifying glass to ignite a fire, and that analogy lays out the parts of the system. So it tells us that there needs to be, first of all, the right energy source. So we covered that in part 1. 2, a clear and functioning lens, held for enough time at the right angle and the right distance. So that's what we'll be looking at today. And then 3, a target that will be responsive to the focused energy. And we're going to get to that next time. So in that analogy, when it comes to setting intentions and manifesting, you are the lens. And that might seem pretty straightforward, right? You just need to focus. That's it. I'll just focus. But unlike sort of the simple one-piece lens of a magnifying glass, we are multifaceted beings, right? So and when it comes to setting intentions and having focus for our manifesting, that can be an issue if it's not acknowledged. If you don't acknowledge that we're multifaceted, there could be problems. After all, different aspects of you may have different intentions. And as the old Chinese proverb goes, he who chases 2 hares catches none. So I'm going to share one of those non-personal fundamentals, which allows you to acknowledge the key aspects of you in a way that allows the seemingly different intentions to align and act as one. Pretty cool, right? So that will give you optimal focus that is uniquely you. So it helps you to become the most powerfully focused lens, and of course is the second secret to rocking your 2020 intentions. So there's some reason that you're listening to this training. I mean, perhaps you're in the process of looking at the year ahead. You want to get clarity on your intentions, but feel somehow disconnected from or ambivalent about the things on your list that spring to mind. Maybe you've seen the same things go on your list year after year and feel somewhat jaded about the whole thing. But still, you do get that a clear and inspired intention can have an impact. You're just looking for a way to get the sparkle back into the process. Or perhaps you feel like there's so many things you want to achieve this year. Never mind chasing two heads. It's like Watership Down in my head. And you're looking for some way to sort the wheat from the chaff and connect to what truly matters, so you can prioritize things and feel and experience that sense of clarity and purpose, movement and success. And you know what? There's never been a better time to come deeply into alignment, to feel inspired, clear, powerful, and purposeful, because, well, we've just started a new year, but actually a whole new decade. And you know what? I don't believe it's an accident that in ophthalmology, 2020 vision describes optimal sight. The other thing I noticed is I love numerology, which, in case you don't know, is the science of numbers and vibration. It's like a predictive thing in some senses, but numbers and vibration, I love it. And 2020 has a double two in it. So double two in numerology is associated with the vibration of the master builder, who has the ability to turn the loftiest of dreams into concrete realities. So again, no accident. Plus, there's 2 zeros, and in numerology, if you add a 0, it adds depth to and wholeness to whatever number they sit next to. And really, today's class is all about acknowledging the wholeness of you in order to achieve your unique focus. So whatever energy you're channeling and whatever target you're focusing on, you'll get the maximum bang for your buck, as the saying goes. So the question goes, how do you deal with all those different aspects of self? Well, let's get into it. Okay, so when you ask yourself, what do I want? A confusion can arise because unconsciously, inside somewhere, the response is another question, which goes, which I do you mean? Because the truth is, we're not really individuals. We're actually collectives of identities. In fact, there are so many selves in each of us, make that clear, in each of us, it would be impossible to acknowledge them all individually. So think of all the different roles that you play. So whether that's parent, child, there's work roles, hobby roles, etc., etc. Then within each of these, there's a slew of variations. So let's take parents. There's playful parent, disciplinarian, tired parent, responsible parent, nurturing parent. There's so many. And then there's the functional aspects and the dysfunctional aspects and so on and so on. So you get the idea. So there's so many different selves inside. Now, fortunately, through MPA, I've found a map of 3 relevant perspectives under which all the various aspects can be grouped. In other words, each aspect of you will be born from one of these 3 perspectives. So we only need to acknowledge these 3 in order to get all aspects aligned in that powerful focus. Good news, right? So don't worry, I'm going to let you know what they are and describe them in detail in a moment. But first, I want to share that in MPA, remember that's short for non-personal awareness, it's processes and philosophies. I call this the multiple perspective model, which basically acknowledges that all these perspectives are happening, they're alive in you at once. But because these perspectives could be perceived as higher or lower states, we tend to, especially in spiritual circles, favor the higher ones and ignore or actively deny the perspective that is perceived as the, in quotes, lowest. And that, my friend, is a big mistake because, as it turns out, that, again, in quotes, lowest perspective is actually the one most grounded in the material world. It's the conduit through which stuff materializes, from which action comes and the forces of motivation arise. All right, so what are these 3 perspectives, I hear you ask? Well, I call them personality, soul, and pure being. So let me define them for you as I see them. So we'll start with the personality. So in a sense, that's the one that's considered the lowest. But as I said, it's the most grounded and it's in the 3D world. So in terms of desires and intentions, which is what we're really focusing on here, the personality tends to be the part that wants the stuff. Because it's in that sort of 3D world, it deals with the coalface of human experience. You know, it wants the results. It wants the tangibles. Show me the money, as they say on Jerry Maguire. And as I said, a lot of judgment can come up for the desires of the personality in certainly more spiritually identified people. So I hear things like, I ask someone what they want, and they'll say something, oh, that's my ego. Then whatever that desire is denied, and some more spiritually friendly, higher perspective replaces it, which leaves the personality out of the equation, like some poor abandoned puppy, bless it. So it's really important to include the personality as part of the equation. It's one of those three perspectives, and there are so many under it. Okay, so from the personality perspective, which is the most grounded, I guess it's the smallest aperture, I guess. If you widen the aperture, you come into what I call the soul perspective. So now soul is a word that it's a label that has so many meanings. It's so many interpretations. I want to be specific about, what defines a soul perspective in this model. So the soul perspective is the part of you that is interested in the journey over time. So classically, it's the journey, not the destination. It's entirely a soul perspective, right? It's interested in evolution, in your growth, in lessons and experiences. And within the soul perspective, it's never complete. So it's always about the ongoing journey. And generally, in terms of intentions, the soul tends to be more general, perhaps you could say less grounded, but it's really about the experiences, the evolution, the growth. That's where it's coming from. And then if you widen the aperture a bit more, you'll come into the sort of the third of these perspectives, which is the perspective of pure being. Now, pure being is really a perspective that holds that the perfection of the now, whereas the soul is never complete and the personality, I suppose, is never satisfied. Pure being is always complete. There's nothing to fix. Everything is perfection in the now. So things like Eckhart Tolle and The Power of Now, Byron Katie and Loving What Is, they're pointing to the states of pure being. Now, it tends to have a boundless quality to it. And being states, if you look at them in terms of intentions, are usually fairly simple, like peace, joy, love. And the questions that will access the intentions of the pure being are more like sort of, who are you being? I mean, the pure being is, who are you being in the now? Now, whatever the experience or the lesson or whatever stuff is there or not there, the pure being perspectives are just about, who are you being? What's the beingness of the now? So that's the third perspective. So hopefully in those very short descriptions, you can get a sense that each has its distinct flavor. And the key here is to acknowledge and include each of them. And hopefully with some self-reflection and a willingness to allow each perspective to express its intention, you can build what is effectively a key phrase from all of those intentions, which embodies united, focused intention in wholeness. So when I help people find it, it's amazing to me to watch how all the tumblers fall into place and their energy completely shifts. It's like by when all three parts are included and a statement is created, you're speaking from wholeness and your whole energy feels it. So I like to think of each perspective as a cogged gear in an engine. And as you line each perspective up, the cogs connect and suddenly you have traction, or powerful attraction potential, I guess. It's like the energy and the torque to really go places. So let me give you an example. So I was working with a client just recently, and she was lost, confused, and overwhelmed. And she was saying yes to a lot of things, though she wasn't sure why, she said. And they all sort of seemed like a good idea, but there was no clarity and in many cases, no motivation to follow through. So there were things that she felt could support her business. There was charity work that she believed in and some personal development projects. So it seemed like there was a lot going on, but not much was really happening. So she felt kind of listless. She was judging herself. And some of the things that she'd agreed to were causing her, considerable anxiety. So it seemed, and this is the important bit, it seemed like she had clear goals, clear intentions. She had a plan. But if there was any juice in it at all, it was in the wrong direction. So what I did, I helped her to come back to intention in wholeness, which is what we're talking about today, using the multiple perspective model. And it soon became really clear to me that she had sort of that spiritual judgment that I talked about of her personality perspective, which wanted to receive an award. So she had judgment around that. But once I helped her to drop the judgment, I instantly saw the energy come back to her, and again, when you let in that personality perspective, it allows the energy to drop through. This is where the manifesting becomes so powerful. You actually allow it to land. So I helped her to get that sense of allowing herself to let her personality receive an award. So, and once I let her do that, her soul perspective really was interested in experiencing flow and excitement, and her pure being perspective was all about purpose. So we put it all together in the purpose, the excitement and flow, and receiving an award in a sentence that really binged for her. And she sat there in the energy of it, and she beamed the biggest smile. I mean, the clarity, the life force, the va-va-voom and magnetic power of it was absolutely tangible. So now when she looked at the tasks ahead of her, all of her whys and her hows were very clear, and the anxieties that she'd had fell away. The apparent obstacles were replaced by clear-sighted solutions. And other inspired thoughts and feelings about her ambitions started to flow in. What a transformation. So the multiple perspective model really gives you a map from which you can align yourself in a way that acknowledges your multifaceted nature. It lets you, as the metaphorical lens in the three-part system I'm sharing, become a point of focus, not diffusion, so that the energy, the true source of power that comes through you can really hit its mark and make the transformation real. So my hope is that just by hearing this, you get a sense of what's possible for you. When you dispel that ambivalence and feel inspired again, and feel confident and congruent in your intentions, knowing that you can channel your power effectively in ways that matter to you. When that clarity makes the priorities obvious and overwhelm obsolete, so you can feel movement and passion and purpose. As you continue through this training, I want that awareness in you to become clearer and clearer. Now, if you feel ready, why not go ahead and just check in with those perspectives within you, get to know them. And I know it might seem new or a bit wacky to some of you out there, but there's no need to fret, because I've got you covered. Because in part 4, I'm going to be letting you know, as I told you before, I'm going to be letting you know how I can make it super easy for you. That'll come in part 4. But for now, just relax, drink in the awareness, because in itself, that's a powerful thing. Okay, I've just gone and jumped ahead to part 4 now. But you probably realized we've still got part 3. There's a third part of the system. So going back to that system, remember 3 parts. Firstly, the right energy source. We covered that in part 1. A clear and functioning lens, and we've just covered that. And then the third part is a target that will be responsive to the focused energy. And that's what I'll be sharing with you in part 3 this Friday. That's right. You don't have to wait a whole week. I'm doing it this Friday. So this time it comes sooner. Now, I'm not going to give much away about part 3 just now, except to say that it's unlikely this will be what you expect. And if you don't have this piece in place, potentially all of that focus work, all of that energy, all of your efforts may have little or no tangible effects in terms of the outcome that you'd like to see. So make sure that you tune in on Friday to get the final piece of the puzzle. Now, I want to hear from you. Did you recognize that you had a preference or a bias against any of the perspectives, be that personality, soul, and pure being? Let me know. This fascinates me in terms of as a community of awakened beings. So did you hear it and go, oh yeah, I'm a bit ego, anti-ego, or anti-personality is what I call the ego. Or you had a real preference, or I really strive to be identified with pure being, and sometimes to the exclusion of other things. So let me know about that. And also, I'm very curious sort of what challenges you've actually experienced with manifesting techniques and intentions. Again, a topic I love to hear about. So do let me know about that. I would love to hear from you. So ways to do that, you can leave me a voice message right on the beabrillianthuman.com website. There's this big purple buttons all over it. It's the purple ones. Press it. You can leave me a voice message. And just do it that way, save you typing. Or you can hit me up on social media. The best place is on Facebook. You can find my page by searching MPA Rocks. And in some places, depending on where you're listening, there might be a button that will get you there straight away. And also I'll put a specific link to some post that relates to this episode on Facebook in the show notes, which you'll find this time at beabrillianthuman.com/14. And on most other social media platforms, you'll find me as at Joel Young MPA. Now, finally, if you found value in this training, and I certainly hope you did, please share it with at least 3 people you know, 1 for each perspective. How about that? So, and especially if you thought, if they're thinking of doing intention work this year, then do share it with them. It's much easier also to get started on this kind of thing when you have other people that you know on the path with you. But right now, please make sure that you subscribe to this podcast so that you'll be notified as soon as the next episode goes live. And did I say, by the way, that will actually be Friday, normally weekly on a Tuesday, but this next one, part 3, will be this Friday, which is the 10th of January. Until then, have a fabulous few days. Go play with it. And for now, I'll leave you there. Let's cue the moo.